For decades, Johnny Carson was the most beloved face on American television, the king of late night, the man who made millions laugh even on their worst days. With his razor-sharp timing, sly grin, and effortless charm, he became a cultural icon whose influence still hangs over late-night TV. But behind the bright lights and the booming applause, Johnny lived a life far more complicated and painful than the public ever knew. And the tragic reason he spent his final years in complete isolation is a story that continues to break hearts and spark questions about the true cost of fame. Johnny Carson mastered the art of making people feel close to him, yet he himself kept the world at arm's length. His childhood shaped him in ways he rarely discussed. Growing up in Nebraska, Johnny lived under the strict, cold presence of a mother who never seemed impressed by anything he accomplished. Even when he became the most famous television host in America, she remained distant, offering little warmth or praise. Friends say this emotional void stayed with Johnny his entire life, leaving him guarded, distrustful, and deeply private. He learned early on that applause wasn't the same as affection, and that millions of viewers laughing didn't erase the loneliness he carried inside. As his fame grew, Johnny's personal life suffered. He endured turbulent marriages, multiple divorces, and strained relationships with his children. His demanding career left little room for emotional connection, and those closest to him often described him as present on screen but absent at home. Tragedy struck hardest in 1991 when his son, Ricky Carson, died in a horrific car accident. Johnny was devastated. Those who knew him say he never truly recovered from the loss. From that moment on, the sparkle in his eyes dimmed, and the man who once lived to entertain began withdrawing more and more from the world. When he retired in 1992, fans expected him to make occasional public appearances, cameos, or interviews. But Johnny disappeared. He rejected invitations, declined tributes, and refused to return to television. People wondered why someone so adored would willingly vanish from public life, but now, years later, the truth behind his isolation has finally surfaced. Johnny had begun quietly battling severe health issues, including respiratory disease caused by decades of heavy smoking, a habit that had followed him since his early years in show business. His once commanding voice weakened, his energy faded, and the man who lived for performance could no longer perform at the level he demanded of himself. Those close to Johnny reveal that his greatest fear was being seen as fragile or diminished. He didn't want pity. He didn't want headlines about his failing health. He didn't want America to remember him as anything other than the sharp, witty host who dominated late night for 30 years. So he did what felt natural to him. He retreated. He spent his days reading, sailing, writing jokes he'd never tell, and quietly watching the world he once entertained move on without him. Even in his final years, he remained witty and curious, sending occasional jokes to David Letterman, but never appearing publicly. Johnny Carson's final chapter was marked by silence, not because he stopped caring, but because he cared too much about how he would be remembered. His isolation was a choice shaped by heartbreak, loss, and a lifetime of guarding his private world from the public eye. He died in 2005, far from the spotlight that had once defined him, leaving behind a legacy of laughter and a haunting reminder of the loneliness that often hides behind fame. In the end, the tragic reason Johnny Carson spent his final years in isolation is both simple and deeply human. He wanted to leave the stage with dignity. After a life spent entertaining millions, he chose to face his final days the only way he felt he could, quietly, privately, and completely on his own terms.